Alaric lived for solitude. In an age where technology had woven itself into every corner of human life, he found peace in the quiet of the forest, where there were no holographic advertisements, no synthetic noises, just the hum of the world as it once was. A biotechnologist by trade, he was known for his breakthroughs in regenerative medicine, but he'd left the city long ago, disillusioned by the corporate corruption and materialistic culture that threatened to swallow his career and his soul. On an autumn afternoon, Alaric roamed deeper into the northern European forest than he ever had before, seeking medicinal plants for his research. The forest was vibrant, alive with the earthy scents of moss and damp leaves. Sunlight filtered through the high canopy, casting soft beams on the forest floor. There, his foot struck something solid but oddly warm. Bending down, he pushed back a blanket of moss and leaves, revealing an object that immediately piqued his curiosity. It was a lamp. But unlike any he'd seen in the relics displayed in the museums of his past, this one had an ancient elegance combined with unmistakably advanced technology. The metal was iridescent, shifting colors as he moved it in the light, covered in symbols that seemed to pulse faintly, as if the object was alive. Tiny inscriptions, unfamiliar to him but beautiful, were etched along its surface. He felt an irresistible urge to wipe it clean, his fingers tracing the cold metal. As soon as his hand brushed the lamp's surface, a strange energy surged through the air, and suddenly, a brilliant light burst forth. Alaric stumbled back, his breath caught in his chest, as a figure materialized before him, suspended in the air, surrounded by shimmering dust that sparkled like stars. It was a woman, but not entirely human. Her skin glistened with a silvery hue, and her hair flowed as if underwater, strands swirling in hues that ranged from deep violet to shimmering gold. Her eyes, vast and luminous, held a wisdom that seemed timeless, but there was a hint of curiosity and sadness in them as well. She wore robes that shifted like galaxies, a living map of constellations scattered across her figure. "I am Alara, a genie bound to the Lamp of Realms. You have awakened me, human," she said, her voice layered with echoes, resonating like distant whispers of stars colliding. "For this, I shall grant you 3 wishes." Alaric blinked, attempting to process the surreal moment. A genie? In his scientific mind, it sounded ridiculous. But there she was, floating in the air with an ethereal beauty, a presence so otherworldly that even the skeptic in him couldn't deny the evidence of his senses. Alara's gaze was intense, penetrating, as if she could see straight into his soul. She extended a hand, and a glimmering ribbon of light arced from her fingers, wrapping around his wrist like a bracelet, faintly pulsing with each beat of his heart. Her presence was vast, unearthly, yet he felt no fear, only an inexplicable familiarity, as though he'd known her in some other life. "I must caution you, mortal," she continued, her voice soft yet solemn. "The wishes I grant are potent. Humans often wish without thinking, led by greed or fear, and find themselves bound by consequences they could never foresee. Choose wisely, for each wish alters the fabric of existence." Alaric felt a strange tug at his heart. Despite her warning, he didn't feel tempted to ask for the usual things, wealth, power, or even immortality. No, there was something about her that made him hesitate. The urge to understand, to connect, was far more potent than any selfish wish. After a moment's thought, he said, "You've seen the desires and dreams of countless humans. You've watched what they ask for, and the consequences that follow. But do you understand why? Do you understand what it's like to want, to need, to feel?" Alara's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise crossing her usually serene face. No one had ever asked her such a question. Millennia of serving, of granting wishes, had taught her the repetitive patterns of human desire. She had observed greed, sorrow, revenge, and love, but always from the outside, detached and distant. "What do you wish of me, human?" she asked, her tone uncertain for the first time. "You speak as if you know my world better than I." Alaric took a breath, feeling a strange sense of weight as he uttered his words. "I wish for you to experience what it's like to be human." The silence that followed was profound. Alara's face, usually composed and tranquil, showed raw emotion, a mixture of curiosity, disbelief, and a hint of fear. She had never been asked for something so simple, yet so complex. The desire to understand humans, their thoughts and feelings, was something she'd only ever watched from afar. Now, she was being asked to live it. "Very well," she said finally, her voice softer than before. "Your first wish shall be granted." A blinding light enveloped her, and her celestial form flickered, then coalesced. Her otherworldly glow began to fade, replaced by the warmth of a mortal body. The stardust robes shifted into a simple, earth-toned dress, and her silvery skin transformed, taking on a warm, human complexion. For the first time, Alara felt the ground beneath her feet, the cool forest air against her skin, and the weight of a heart that beat rhythmically within her chest. Alaric watched, mesmerized, as she took her first steps as a human. Her breath came in soft, odd gasps as she lifted her hands to examine her fingers, turning them over as if she'd never seen anything so strange. She raised her gaze to meet his, eyes filled with wonder, a sensation she'd never felt before. "Is this what it feels like?" she asked, her voice now lacking its otherworldly echo, carrying the same vulnerable warmth as any human's. "Yes," Alaric replied, captivated. "Welcome to our world, Alara." As they stood in the forest, an unspoken bond formed between them, bound not by magic but by shared discovery. For the first time, Alara would live as a human, and Alaric knew he was about to embark on a journey unlike any he had ever imagined. Alara's transition into human form was jarring and overwhelming. For eons, she had observed humanity from an immortal vantage, untouched by the aches and emotions that defined human life. But now, with every heartbeat and breath, she was inundated with sensations, the damp forest air chilling her skin, the crunch of fallen leaves under her bare feet, the intricate tug of muscles as she moved. Each sensation was a revelation, an experience of the mundane transformed into something extraordinary. Alaric watched her with cautious fascination, keeping a respectful distance as she adjusted to her newfound reality. He could see the awe on her face as she explored her hands and traced her fingers over her skin. For the first time, Alara was grounded in a way she had never been before, tethered to the earth by a body that could grow weary, feel hunger, and experience pleasure and pain. They walked back to his cabin, a modest wooden structure tucked away in a clearing. Along the way, Alaric pointed out different flora and fauna, explaining their names and functions. His voice was steady and warm, his knowledge of the natural world apparent as he described each plant and animal. She listened with rapt attention, her curiosity insatiable as she absorbed every detail. For the first time, she wasn't simply hearing words or observing behaviors, she was actively engaging with them, feeling the thrill of discovery. Inside the cabin, Alara sank into an armchair by the fireplace, looking around with wide eyes at the cluttered yet cozy space. There were bookshelves filled with volumes on ancient botany, alchemy, and rare folklore. Alaric's desk was a mess of research notes, pressed flowers, and half-finished sketches. She reached out, running her fingers over the rough, uneven texture of the paper. "What is this feeling?" she asked, looking up at him, her eyes shimmering with bewilderment. "It's as if everything I touch and see has a weight, a depth I never understood before." "That's part of being human," Alaric explained, sitting across from her. "Everything becomes tangible, connected. It's why we love, why we fight, and why we dream. We're bound to this world through our senses. To truly understand it, you have to live it." The night wore on as he showed her simple, human things. He made her tea, and she marveled at the warmth of the cup in her hands, inhaling the earthy scent of the herbs. When she tasted it, her eyes lit up with wonder, the flavor bursting on her tongue. Every sip brought new sensations, a slight bitterness, a soothing warmth, a feeling of comfort and contentment she hadn't known existed. Later, she fell asleep for the first time. She found herself drifting into dreams, worlds woven from memories and fragments of her immortal existence. She saw her ancient past, countless masters and wishes granted, the faces of those she'd helped or ruined. But now, she felt it all more keenly, the joy, the sorrow, the desperation that had filled the hearts of those humans. She awoke with a strange tightness in her chest, an emotion she couldn't name. The next day, Alaric took her into the nearby town, introducing her to a more complex side of humanity. She watched the people bustling through the marketplace, children laughing as they played, vendors calling out their wares. Everything was alive, vivid, but it was more than just the sights and sounds. For the first time, Alara felt the weight of social bonds, the glances people shared, the warmth of greetings, the subtle tensions beneath polite smiles. At one point, a little girl tugged on Alara's sleeve, holding up a handful of wildflowers. "For you," the girl chirped, eyes wide with innocent delight. Alara accepted the flowers, her heart swelling with a strange, warm sensation. She knelt down, looking into the girl's eyes. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice trembling. For a moment, she felt the rush of pure connection, an understanding shared without words. As they left the marketplace, Alara asked, "Is this what you humans feel all the time? This openness, this vulnerability?" Alaric chuckled. "Yes, it's a constant part of being human. Every encounter, every glance or touch, has the potential to affect us deeply. Some people embrace it, others build walls to protect themselves." Alara nodded, a quiet determination in her gaze. She realized that she had spent centuries building those walls, keeping herself distant from the lives she influenced. But now, she felt the urge to break those barriers, to understand not just human desires, but also their fears, hopes, and sorrows. That evening, they returned to the cabin, where Alaric shared stories of his own life. He spoke of his childhood, his parents' untimely deaths, and his journey through foster homes. He described the loneliness that had shadowed him, his need to make sense of the world through science, and his eventual retreat into the forest, where he found solace in nature's quiet beauty. Alara listened, her heart aching in a way she'd never known. She had granted wishes for humans with tragic pasts before, but she had never fully understood the weight of that pain. Now, hearing Alaric's story, she felt it as if it were her own, a tugging sorrow that lingered in her chest. "You carry a great deal of sadness, Alaric," she said softly, reaching out to touch his hand. The warmth of his skin against hers was startling, grounding her in the present moment. "I've seen so many humans ask for love or power, thinking it will fill an emptiness they can't understand. But I never realized. That emptiness is so profound." "It is," he replied, his voice quiet. "But it's also what drives us to keep going, to create, to find meaning in the world around us." Their gazes met, and in that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. Alaric sensed that this wish, this journey into human existence, was something Alara had needed as much as he had. Her centuries of granting wishes, of watching human lives unfold from a distance, had left her isolated, unable to truly connect. Now, she was feeling the full weight of humanity, the beauty and the pain intertwined. As the days turned into weeks, Alara grew more accustomed to her human form. She began to notice subtler emotions within herself, curiosity, joy, and something deeper that emerged whenever she was near Alaric. He became her guide, her companion, helping her navigate the mysteries of human life. She learned to cook, to laugh, to savor each moment as though it were a precious gift. One evening, as they sat under the starlit sky, Alara turned to Alaric. "Why did you ask me to experience this? To become human?" Alaric hesitated, the firelight casting flickering shadows across his face. He looked into her eyes, and for a moment, he seemed vulnerable, as if she were seeing a side of him he rarely revealed. "Because I thought that only someone who understands could help me find what I'm truly looking for." "What is it you seek?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, a hint of longing hidden within. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I've always felt disconnected. Like I've been searching for something I can't name." When I found you, I realized I didn't want wealth or power. I wanted someone who could understand this feeling of being human, the loneliness, the longing. Someone who would see past my work, my past, and just see me. Alara's heart skipped a beat as his words sank in. She understood now. His wish wasn't about curiosity or novelty. He had been seeking connection, a true companion who could share his life in a way no one else could. And as she looked at him, a new sensation rose within her, an unfamiliar warmth, a pull that was both thrilling and terrifying. In that moment, Alara realized that her journey was not only about understanding humanity. It was about understanding herself, discovering emotions she had never dared to feel. She had granted Alaric's wish, but in doing so, she had given herself something she never knew she needed, a chance to feel, to belong, and perhaps even to love. The days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Alara and Alaric's lives entwined like the roots of the ancient trees surrounding his cabin. She grew more at ease with her humanity, learning to find joy in the small details, watching snowflakes fall, savoring the taste of ripe fruit, feeling the warmth of a fire on her skin. And more, she began to feel something strange and all-consuming whenever she looked at Alaric. It was a pull she couldn't resist, a deep yearning she had never experienced as a genie. One evening, as they worked together cataloging plants in Alaric's cozy cabin, their hands brushed as they both reached for the same leaf. They froze, caught in the spark of the unexpected contact. Alaric looked up, his gaze meeting hers, and in that charged silence, the feelings they'd both been avoiding became undeniable. There was a bond between them, a connection so profound that it went beyond words, beyond logic. "Alara," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you feel right now?" Her heart pounded as she tried to find the words. She could scarcely recognize herself, the proud, timeless genie who had once floated above humanity, seeing their desires as foolish trifles. But now, with every moment that passed, she felt more and more a part of the world she had once scorned. "I feel something I don't understand," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Something that scares me but also draws me in. It's like an ache, a need to be near you, to share every part of myself with you. I never thought it was possible for someone like me to feel this." Alaric's eyes softened, a flicker of hope and fear mingling in his gaze. He reached out, taking her hand in his. "Alara, I've spent so much of my life alone, feeling like I was searching for something I couldn't find. But with you, I feel whole. I feel seen." She closed her eyes, letting his words sink in, feeling a happiness she couldn't have imagined. But beneath it was a growing sense of dread. She was a genie, bound to the ancient laws of her kind. Her humanity, her emotions, her ability to stay with Alaric, these were all part of his wish, and when her powers were restored, she would be forced to return to her ethereal existence. Her time with him was limited. Over the following days, the weight of this realization grew unbearable. She wanted to stay, to live as a human, to be with Alaric. She wanted to love him, not as a genie, but as a woman who could grow old with him, face life's struggles, and share its beauty. But could she ever truly escape her nature? Could she choose humanity over the timeless existence she'd always known? Finally, one night, she found herself standing beside Alaric under the starlit sky. The moon cast a silvery glow over the forest, and the stars were scattered like diamonds across the heavens. It was beautiful, and for a fleeting moment, she let herself believe it could last forever. "Alaric," she said, her voice a whisper filled with sorrow. "There's something I need to tell you." He looked at her, concern darkening his eyes. "What is it?" "I can't stay like this forever," she confessed, her voice breaking. "When I granted your wish, I gave up my powers temporarily. But as your wishes are fulfilled, I will be drawn back to the Lamp of Realms. I'll have to return to the life I had before." Alaric's face fell, the realization settling in like a dark shadow. He took a step closer, his voice thick with emotion. "No, there has to be a way. We'll use one of the remaining wishes. I'll wish for you to stay, Alara. I'll wish for you to be free. Her heart twisted painfully at his words. It's not that simple, she replied, shaking her head. A genie's freedom is more complex than a wish can fulfill. I'm bound to the laws of my existence. Even if I were freed, my essence would still belong to the realms beyond. To break that bond, I would have to give up my existence as a genie entirely. I would be human in every way. He looked at her, his expression fierce. Then that's what I want. Alara, I don't want you as a genie. I want you as you are now, a woman, with all your beauty, strength, and vulnerability. I don't care what it takes, I'll use my second wish to set you free, to make you human. Her heart raced at the thought, the forbidden longing stirring within her. It would mean forsaking everything she had ever known, every shred of her immortal identity. But for the chance to love him, to live as he did, she would pay any price. Are you certain, Alaric? She asked, her voice trembling. To make me human is a wish with consequences. I would lose all my powers, my immortality, my connection to the stars. I would live, and one day, I would die just like you. He nodded, his face solemn but resolute. Yes, Alara. That's what I want. I want a life with you, no matter how brief or fragile. I want us to share every moment we can. My second wish is for you to be free from the lamp, to live as a human, to be with me. Alara felt a surge of warmth and joy, a pure, uncontainable happiness she'd never known in her millennia of existence. This wish was her release, her salvation, and it came not from a selfish desire, but from love, a genuine, selfless love she knew was rare and precious. Then it shall be done, she whispered, the words trembling on her lips. She held his hand tightly, feeling the magic rise within her, the final remnants of her genie power slipping away. A soft glow enveloped her, gentle and warm, until it faded completely, leaving her human in every way. In that moment, she felt the weight of her body, the beat of her heart, the warmth of Alaric's hand in hers. She was bound to this world now, vulnerable and fragile, but blissfully alive. She looked up at him, and they shared a kiss beneath the endless sky, the stars bearing witness to a love that had defied realms. But a small part of her couldn't shake a lingering unease. In granting Alaric's second wish, she had crossed a line, altered the fabric of her existence. And though she was free, she knew there would be consequences. The universe had its rules, and bending them for love was not without cost. Over the following days, Alara and Alaric savored the simplicity of their lives together. She learned to cook with him, laughing at her early mistakes and marveling at each small victory. They spent hours exploring the woods, and each sunset felt like a miracle, every heartbeat a gift. For the first time in her existence, she felt grounded, living not for eternity but for the beauty of each fleeting moment. One evening, as they lay together, Alaric traced his fingers along her arm, studying her with a mixture of awe and tenderness. "Alara, do you regret it?" he asked softly, the worry in his voice unmistakable. "Giving up everything, your powers, your eternity?" She smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I don't regret a single moment. I never knew life could be so rich, so full of wonder and meaning. Eternity is cold and empty compared to this." But deep down, a gnawing worry tugged at her heart. She knew there was one wish left, one final choice that could change everything again. She feared it, not because she doubted Alaric's love, but because she knew how unpredictable the universe could be. Love had altered her fate once, but fate had a way of striking back when one tried to escape its hold. And in the quiet hours of the night, as Alaric slept beside her, she lay awake, gazing at the stars. She prayed that the love she had found, so fragile and precious, would be enough to hold them together. But a shadow lingered, a reminder that she had been born from wishes, bound by laws older than any mortal could understand. In her heart, she hoped that Alaric's final wish would be one for peace, not for more than the life they already had. Because now, as human as she was, Alara was bound by love and fate alike, and she feared that destiny might still have a price for them to pay. The seasons changed, bringing a renewed rhythm to Alara and Alaric's life together. As spring turned to summer, they grew inseparable, each day building on the last with laughter, quiet evenings, and whispered conversations beneath starlit skies. Alara was fully human now, her powers gone, her connection to the stars severed. She relished every minute of her mortal existence, knowing each heartbeat was a precious gift. They spent their days in the forest, discovering hidden groves and forgotten ruins, collecting rare herbs and flowers, and unraveling the mysteries of the land together. Alaric marveled at her endless curiosity, watching as she experienced each sensation and emotion with an intensity that only someone who'd never known mortality could possess. It was a pure joy, a love that grew richer and deeper as they shared every moment, every secret. Yet, as the months passed, Alara began to notice changes within herself that unsettled her. Her body, once timeless, was now bound by the frailties of humanity. Her senses began to dull, and she would tire more easily. A persistent ache in her chest started to bother her, and her skin grew colder, paler. Alaric, noticing her weakened state, grew concerned, yet she brushed it off with a smile, unwilling to let him see her fear. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Alaric finally confronted her. "Alara," he began, his voice filled with worry. "I can't ignore it any longer. You're not well. There's something wrong, isn't there?" Alara looked at him, her heart aching with the truth she could no longer hide. She took his hand, her fingers trembling, and nodded. "Yes, Alaric. My body. It wasn't meant to endure the weight of mortality. I was never meant to live as a human for so long. This life, beautiful as it is slowly unraveling me." Alaric's face fell, his eyes filling with desperation. "There has to be a way. I can't lose you, Alara. Not like this." She smiled softly, her hand moving to cup his cheek. "You've given me a gift beyond anything I ever imagined, Alaric. A life filled with love, beauty, and joy. I wouldn't trade it for anything, not even eternity. But I knew when I chose this path that it wouldn't last forever." Tears shimmered in Alaric's eyes, and he held her close, his voice a broken whisper. No, I can't let you go. There has to be something we can do. I still have one wish left, don't I? I'll use it to save you, Alara. I'll wish for your health, your life, anything to keep you here with me." Alara's heart sank, both touched and terrified by his words. She remembered the ancient laws, the cosmic balance that every genie was bound to. Wishes could shape reality, but only within the confines of the universe's order. She had already defied that balance once by becoming human, and she feared that using the final wish to bend fate further would come with a steep cost. "Alaric, please," she pleaded, taking his hands in hers. "A wish to alter life and death could bring consequences far worse than losing me. I've seen what unchecked desires can do, wishes that twist reality into something unrecognizable. I don't want that to happen to us." "But I can't just let you go," he replied, his voice filled with helplessness. "I can't bear to think of a life without you." She touched his face, her eyes filled with love. "Alaric, you already have my heart, my soul. You've given me everything I never knew I needed. Let that be enough. Cherish what we had. I'll be with you, even if not in the way we both wish." But as the days passed and her health continued to decline, Alaric's grief became unbearable. He spent his days researching ancient texts, looking through folklore and legends, seeking any means to prolong her life. He was determined to save her, to defy fate one last time. On the night of the first snowfall, Alara lay in bed, too weak to rise. Alaric sat beside her, his eyes hollow from sleepless nights, his voice hoarse as he spoke to her, clutching her hand. She could feel his desperation, his refusal to accept the inevitable. She knew that he was holding onto his final wish, terrified of the consequences yet unwilling to let her go without trying. Alara, he whispered, his voice trembling. If there's any part of you that believes in one more miracle, please. Let me use my final wish. Alara looked at him, her vision blurred with tears. She was torn between her love for him and the knowledge of what such a wish might cost. But seeing the pain etched into his face, the depth of his love, she felt her resolve falter. All right, she whispered, her voice weak but steady. But let the wish be one of peace, Alaric. Wish not for me to live, but for us both to find happiness, whether in this world or the next. Alaric's heart ached, but he understood her request. He could feel her slipping away, the weight of her mortality pressing down on them both. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes and made his final wish. I wish, he whispered, for peace for Alara and myself, that we may find happiness beyond this life, wherever our souls may go. The air around them grew still, and a soft, golden light enveloped them, filling the room with warmth. Alara felt a profound sense of calm wash over her, and she knew the wish had been granted not in the way they might have hoped, but in a way that honored their love. As the light faded, Alara felt her pain ease, her breathing slowing. Alaric held her close, his arms wrapped around her as they shared their final moments together. She rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, letting it lull her into a peaceful stillness. I love you, Alaric, she whispered, her voice fading. Thank you for giving me a life filled with beauty and love. I'll always be with you. He kissed her forehead, his tears falling softly. I love you, too, Alara. I always will. In the quiet of the night, as the snow continued to fall outside, Alara's breathing grew fainter, until finally, she slipped into a gentle stillness, her soul drifting peacefully into the unknown. The following morning, Alaric awoke alone, the space beside him empty. He could feel her absence like a shadow, a quiet echo that lingered in the cabin. But somehow, there was no pain, no despair. He felt at peace, a deep, abiding calm that filled the space where his grief had been. He knew her spirit was still with him, woven into the fabric of his heart, her love a permanent part of his soul. In the years that followed, Alaric continued his life in the forest, honoring her memory by dedicating himself to the beauty of nature, preserving the forest, and tending to the life around him. He often felt her presence in the gentle breeze, the rustling leaves, and the shimmer of starlight. And though he would always miss her, he understood that love, in its truest form, transcended even life and death. She had granted him peace, a love that extended beyond the limitations of the mortal world. On clear nights, he would sit beneath the stars, looking up at the heavens, remembering her laugh, her touch, the way she had transformed his world. And as he gazed at the sky, he knew she was out there, watching over him, their souls forever bound by a love that was, indeed, beyond wishes.